Yo, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prodigy channel. And in this video, I'm just going to be doing a quick little auction draft recap for you guys, so you guys can kind of see what I did, what strategy I took, what I was able to learn from this draft, things I would do differently, things I liked. This is a 2-quarterback league, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 flex. And I guess technically it's not a 2-quarterback, it's a 1-quarterback and a 1 offensive player position. It's like a super flex basically, but you're going to want to play a quarterback in that spot. It's a 10-team league. We had a $200 budget, not a $1 budget, so that's important to take note of. And this is the 3rd year of this league, so I actually was able to make the championship against the same team both of the first 2 years of this league. We lost the first year, we won the next year, which was last season, the 2020 season, but now we're on to 2021, and I took a little bit of a different approach in the draft, and I'll show you guys that right here. So I'll actually show you guys my team last year first, sort of get into this strategy before we get into the specific players. So last year, as you can see, remember, this is a $200 budget. I did not spend over $30 on a single player. My most expensive player was Tyreek Hill, $29, which is about a 14.5% of my budget, which is unbelievable. Great value. Steal of the draft, maybe. Same with Calvin Ridley, unbelievable steal. I'm reminiscing too much about how good this draft was for me last year. Here is the final roster from the championship week of last season, the 2020 season, by the way, in case you were curious. And as you can see, a lot of those wide receivers that I drafted that didn't cost a lot of money, they were foundational pieces of my lineup all the way to the championship. Same with Kyler Murray. My running backs obviously were weak. I got Melvin Gordon, Leonard Fournette, but I was able to really ride those receivers all the way to the title. Now back to this year. But as you can see, I really dispersed my money. I got a lot of kind of not super expensive players because I got like McCaffrey, for example. He went for, where was he? He went for $64. Saquon went for 60. Derrick Henry 47, Dalvin Cook 53. I don't have anyone like that on my team, right? Again, the most I spent was 29 on a player. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I had 8 players on my team last year that were in the double digits, and I even had some money left over to get like a $7 Zach Ertz, a $9 Matt Ryan, guys like that. You contrast that to this year's draft where I went very, very top heavy, and that was deliberate, but I think I took it a little too far, and you can see why. Last year I didn't have a single player over $30. This year I have 4 over $30. So I have some really, really heavy hitting awesome players, but I definitely wish I had more depth. I really made I think I went a little too hard going for those top heavy hitters this year. I only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players that were worth double digits, and then after that the rest of my roster is all $1 players. So my max bid was $1 by the 50th pick of the draft. So that was poor money management. It could work out, because don't get me wrong, Travis Kelce, $44. He was my first pick. That's 22% of my budget. For a guy like Kelce, I figured, you know what, I want that positional advantage. I'm just going to spend up for him, and I bid 44. No one else bid. I ended up getting him. I wasn't too upset about that. Javonte Adams, to me, he's the type of guy who any given year, especially with this extra game in the NFL season, he could set the touchdown record. He is unbelievable in the red zone. He has such good chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers is just going to air it out this year. So I expect him to do well. The only downside with him is he usually does miss a game or two most seasons, and the Packers have shown willingness to sit him out. Even if he could play, they tend to take a cautious approach with their players, at least with Davante Adams. But again, you can't really go wrong with Davante Adams there. Aaron Jones I got for 37. To me, that was an extreme value. You look at a guy like McCaffrey who went for 67. Joe Mixon, similar amount. Jonathan Taylor, 40. So yeah, you guys kind of have an idea. Alvin Kamara, 56. Aaron Jones has the same week-to-week upside as Alvin Kamara. Aaron Jones could score 4 touchdowns in a game, but you know, he's a little bit discounted, and he might not have the same consistency as a guy like McCaffrey, but he's still a very, very solid RB1. So I went with the Packers stack. I'm a Vikings fan, so that was kind of hard to do, but I cannot deny that I really, really like the Packers offense. I liked them last year. I like them this year. I like them most years. And what I like about their offense is you kind of know where the ball is going to go. And you also kind of know that their offense is going to be good with Aaron Rodgers leading the way. So you know Davante Adams is going to get his targets. You know Aaron Jones is going to get his touches. That's pretty much a given most weeks. I went with Kyler Murray as my first quarterback on my team this year. Remember, this is a 2-quarterback league, so quarterbacks go for quite a bit. And I got him for 31, and I was happy to pay that. I think he has the potential to be the #1 overall fantasy quarterback with that rushing upside. I won the championship with him as my lead dog last year. I decided to run it back with him. And after that, I realized, I'm sort of in a little money crunch here. So I went with DJ Moore for 15. To me, that's a steal. That's 7.5% of my budget. That's a great value. I don't expect him to be like the #1 overall wide receiver, but as my wide receiver too, he'll get targets, he'll get yards. And if he can get into the end zone more than he historically has, that's about as good of a value as you can get. And we did draft after the ETN injury that boosted James Robinson's value a little bit, but I was still able to get him for $18, which is 9% of my budget. Again, kind of same with DJ Moore. I don't expect him to be necessarily a league winner. Last year, he was more of a league winner because you kind of picked him up off the waiver wire. This year, I had to pay a little bit for him. But I still think as my RB2, he'll be very, very solid. He should see some good volume there with ETN out. And I think we get a lot of touches. He'll catch the ball a little bit, get in the end zone, hopefully. But yeah, so after that, it goes downhill quite a bit. So that was my 49th pick. I was not able to get another player for $1 until 74th overall. And then at 135 and into the 100. So I'll just kind of read through these guys I got for $1. I got Darnell Mooney, who, trust me, I like him as a sleeper. But to be my wide receiver 3 in the startup draft, I don't love it. Now, I have a lot of lottery tickets like that, okay? Darnell Mooney, I think the Bears offense will be better. He actually played really well last year. The quarterback play just wasn't necessarily the greatest, but from my understanding, he was getting open, he was getting targeted. It just wasn't working out. So hopefully Andy Dalton and Justin Fields can get the ball in his hands, and because I need him to perform. He needs to be my wide receiver 3. And here's another important thing to note, guys, is we did this draft just before the J.K. Dobbins injury. I think it was like a day or two before. So Gus Edwards, I ended up getting for $1. I liked him for that price even before the injury because he was going to serve in a complementary role with J.K. Dobbins. Mark Ingram is no longer in Baltimore, so he was going to be the backup, and he was going to have a role in the backfield because, even last year he got a decent amount of carries. You could throw him in your flex any given week, and he was an efficient runner on his limited touches. So now with J.K. Dobbins out for the year, Gus Edwards he's in that RB2 range. It's a good offense. The Ravens run the ball quite a bit. He's not going to catch a lot of passes, most likely. Lamar Jackson, like most rushing quarterbacks, he doesn't throw the ball to the running back very much. He's more likely to just tuck the ball and run. But he should be the lead running back. As of this recording, they haven't signed anyone. So I expect him to be a really, really solid flex for me. And I really needed that break. Obviously, I would never hope for a player to get hurt like Dobbins did, but that's just fantasy. And I was fortunate enough to have him on my team. So I went from having a really, really weak flex to all of a sudden the guy I got for $1, barring injury, he's an RB2 that I can put into my flex. So that worked out for me. And I was really scraping the bottom of the barrel here, moving forward with some of these quarterbacks. Zach Wilson, Jared Goff, Teddy Bridgewater. I got them all for $1. The max quarterbacks you can have on a roster is 4. And it was a guy that I really wanted to get, and he's also a value that I would definitely look for in a 2-quarterback league, would be, where is he? I know he's on this team. Kirk Cousins for $6. That's a 3% of your budget. I believe he was a low-end quarterback 1, high-end quarterback 2 last year. I'm not 100% sure, but he put up a lot of big numbers. I'm not sure if he can put up the same numbers. The Vikings defense should be a little bit better. He might not need to pass as much, but with Dalvin Cook out of the backfield, Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson as your wide receivers, he has really, really nice upside any given week to go off if the Vikings need to throw the ball. And he's good enough to have a solid floor. He'll have his weeks where he doesn't perform the greatest, but as your quarterback 2 in a 2-quarterback league or your 3rd quarterback to play in a bye week, it's hard to beat that. So again, this is where my money management really came back to bite me. I couldn't even afford a $6 Kirk Cousins. So I had to go with a $1 Zach Wilson, Jared Goff, Teddy Bridgewater. And to pay $5 more and get to elevate from those type of quarterbacks to Kirk Cousins, that is a huge difference for only such a small amount of money. And I wish I would have had a little more money. And actually, I'll give you a little bit of kind of insight as to what I wish I would have done once we finish the recap of my actual roster, because hindsight is 2020, but there were definitely a few times in the draft when I realized I messed up. So moving forward, I got Tony Pollard as started. He's the backup running back in Dallas. I don't expect him to have a huge complimentary role. I expect Zeke to get most of the workload, but if Zeke goes down, Tony Pollard can fill a spot for me. And he has also shown the ability in the past to perform well for fantasy when given the opportunity. So if he does get the opportunity, he's someone that I can use. But he also might be someone I dropped to the waiver wire. J.D. McKissic, he had an insane amount of targets and receptions last year for the Washington football team. But I do expect Antonio Gibson, their lead running back, to be more involved in the passing game than he was last year. But hopefully J.D. McKissic can be somewhat involved so I can use him in a pinch if needed. And then Devin Singletary, I don't love him. He's sharing a backfield with Zach Moss. I don't expect him to be really anything special at all, but again, it was $1 at the end of the draft. And then I ended off the draft with Nelson Agholor and Russell Gage. I expect Russell Gage to get targets in Atlanta with Julio Jones gone, but it's going to be the Calvin Ridley show. But Russell Gage should be a solid, this is a half PPR league, by the way. I should have mentioned that earlier. Half PPR league. Hopefully he'll get targeted at least enough to maybe make a flex on a bye week or with an injury or something. Nelson Agholor, I don't really like the Patriots passing game, especially with Cam Newton as a quarterback. If Mac Jones takes over and he shows an ability to get the ball in Nelson Aguilar's hands, maybe he'll be a solid play for $1, but he's someone that I could drop. So to kind of recap what I wish I would have done and kind of some values that I wish I would have taken advantage of. So it's not that I regret paying up for any of these players, but I regret kind of, I got too many of them. I got a little bit greedy. Okay, so Travis Kelce, I'm thinking, oh yeah, 6th pick of the draft. The juices are flowing. I'm gonna get the number 1 tight end in the league. Well, if you look later in the draft, and forgive me, I'll have to find them. Okay, here's one. George Kittle went for $27. So is he the same player as Travis Kelce? No, I'd much rather have Kelce, but that discount, if I can take that. What is it? He went for $17 less. I could have used that money to add another receiver, add some more depth somewhere, get a second quarterback, get 2 more good quarterbacks. So same with, where is he? Yeah, here he is, Darren Waller. He went for 24. He went for $24. Darren Waller, $24. Travis Kelce, 44. It's a $20 discount. Still for a top 3 tight end. That's one spot where, looking back, once I saw him go for 24, I was like, dang it, I should not have grabbed Kelce. Even though I think Kelce will be better, I would rather have Waller for 24. Especially given that I was so aggressive with the rest of my budget, that depth really would have helped. And then I was going to talk about one other player. I was going to talk about kind of Kirk Cousins, how he went for quite a bit less. There were a lot of quarterbacks that didn't go for much. Matt Stafford, $9. I feel like a lot of the quarterbacks didn't go for as much as they should have in this league. They show a dollar amount that they should go for, but they don't really factor in the 2 quarterback or the 3 wide receiver. So it would say like, a quarterback should go for like $5 when really it should probably go for like $10, $20. So that was a little disheartening. A couple other auction draft targets that I would have for you guys though. Mike Davis, he's not flashy, but he's a lead running back in Atlanta. He should be a nice volume play. For $9. That's a steal. I couldn't afford him. Otherwise I would have got him. Justin Herbert went for $10. 10. That's 5% of your budget. In a 2 quarterback league, that's so worth it. There was another player I was going to talk about. Oh, I found him. DK Metcalf. I'm sure he'd go for more in your drafts, but he went for $20, which is 10% of our budget. To me, that was a really big steal. Another guy that I liked on the same team, actually, TJ Hawkinson for $6. I expect a breakout year from him heading into his 3rd year. He went for 3% of the budget. So actually, FK Dollars, he had a really, really nice draft. This is another team that I thought had a really good draft. And they actually made a trade where they got rid of Waller and they got rid of Hopkins. And they were able to kind of improve their running backs. They got Joe Mixon, Jonathan Taylor. But overall, as you can see, this team is this is kind of a team similar to what I had last year, where I had a really, really deep receiving core. And imagine his receiving core before the trade when he had DeAndre Hopkins out there. But he's got 2 reliable quarterbacks. He has a couple quarterbacks on the bench to plug in there. Javonte Williams on his bench, but if and when he gets that lead running back role, he will dominate most likely. Probably got him for a good price. Good running backs, good receivers, solid. Yeah, like that's the type of team that I got last year. And even this one might even be a little bit better. So that's a very, very dangerous team. You compare that to a team like mine. Actually, hold on. How much did Javonte Williams, $7. Tyler Lockett, 12. Yeah, guys, these values in the middle rounds, I really messed up by going so heavy. But hey, that's part of fantasy. We learn. But I'm not totally screwed here. But I'm gonna have to definitely play the waiver wire game. I might have to make a trade. I don't normally like to trade a really great player for a couple of good players, but with a team like this, that might be something I have to do depending on how things work out, depending on who I can get off the waiver wire. But obviously, the running backs are looking solid. I have one really good quarterback, but in a 2-quarterback league, I wish I had enough money to get at least a solid quarterback too. Hopefully one of these 3 is solid, but I don't know. Maybe Zach Wilson has a rookie breakout, but who knows? And then again, a couple good wide receivers, but in a 3 wide receiver league, Darnell Mooney, Nelson Aguilar, Russell Gage. I wish those were more players that I had on my bench, and I had a guy like, I don't know, Tyler Lockett or Robert Woods, who went for like under $20, I think, or around 20. So a guy like that who is I know I'm gonna get targets. I'm gonna get production out of it, but I have hope that hopefully Mooney or someone breaks out, but if not, again, I'll have to add someone off the waiver wire. Speaking of the waiver wire, one thing I do like about building this top-heavy type of lineup is that I have those solid foundational pieces of a team, and then also on top of that, I shouldn't have any struggle finding someone on my bench to cut when inevitably I want to add some players from the waiver wire early on in the season, because we've all been there. When you have a team with a lot of players on your bench that you like, it's really hard to let go and release those players to the waiver wire. But when you have a bench like this with some guys that you're not super stoked about, it makes it a lot easier to cut ties with them and make some aggressive plays on the waiver wire and add some league winners. Obviously, great tight end. But again, imagine if I had Waller because remember, Darren Waller went for $20 less than Travis Kelce. So if DK Metcalf would have gone for $20 if I bid on him, I could have Waller and DK Metcalf compared to Travis Kelce and Darnell Mooney. Now, that sounds nice, right? Yeah. So overall, I learned quite a bit from this draft. It's important to get some heavy hitters, but if you do that, you're gonna have to play the waiver wire, get some depth via that route, because once the majority of your roster is comprised of $1 bids, you're gonna struggle with some depth, but as long, and again, I also have to rely on health. I need all these guys to stay healthy. As one of them gets hurt, it's really, really going to hurt my fantasy team. So that's another thing that kind of sucks with having not a lot of depth. But I think you kind of get the point. I wish I would have saved a little bit here and there to get a better quarterback 2, a better wide receiver 3. We got a lucky break with Gus Edwards getting a lead role. Again, obviously, I would much rather have Dobbins be healthy, but it is what it is. So luckily, that kind of saved us a little bit. But yeah, I think I've talked enough about this team. I can kind of show you guys the draft board one final time if you did want to take one last look. There were a ton of values in this draft. I don't want to go through every single one of them because that would be kind of boring and exhausting. But I kind of highlighted a few of my favorites. And I guess that's one piece of advice I would give to you is in your own leagues. It is important to get some high price guys that can win you a week. But at the same time, like I said, last year, I won the league not paying more than $29 for a player. And it's important to really save your money because in those middle rounds, you can really get some good values. So that's kind of my main takeaway, but I think we could be okay depending on how things break. But yeah, I think that's enough talking from me. I think you guys get the point. Good luck in your drafts if you have one coming up. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you liked it. Make sure to drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel for more fantasy football content, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out.